So I became the first man in the American Army to deal with war crimes. And the typical way of dealing with war crimes was Corporal Ferencz getting into a jeep marked Emerald line, saying to the colonel, just get out of my way, and I'll report back when I've got something to report. I would go out and deal with the reports which came in. The early ones were of what we called flyer cases. Flyer cases were cases of Allied flyers who were shot down on German territory, and they were almost invariably beaten to death by the mob in the town in which they fell. I say almost invariably because it's deserved of mention that it wasn't always the case. If they came down in some little village somewhere or on a farm, sometimes they were hidden, protected, or they were given some work on the farm. Depends on which time of the year it was. After Stalingrad, it was a bit better than before, because the Germans had the impression they were just going to sweep in and total victory, and they didn't have to worry about anything else. However, the flyer cases were simple. People were beaten to death. I would come in and find out by grabbing the burgomaster or police chief or anybody else and bring people who were witnesses to this event, take their statements, and have a pretty good idea of exactly what had happened, who had killed whom, with what blows. A fireman had split his head open with a crowbar, or somebody had beaten him head with a boot or something like that. And once I had the evidence collected, some witnesses' testimony, cross-examine one against the other, I could prepare a quick dossier that on a certain date, we had to report 3 Allied flyers had been shot down, or 2 or 1. And I investigated in the town of so-and-so, and these are the events that took place. I had to go and find the body. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes they were just dumped into a hole. Sometimes they were thrown into the river. And I had to learn where to locate a body of a murdered flyer. Dig them out of the ground, identify the body, and prepare the report. These cases, the Allied flyer cases, as well as the early concentration camp cases, which I'll come to in a moment, were tried by the U.S. military commissions, which was set up in the Dachau concentration camp outside of Munich. That was done for symbolic reasons, really, because Dachau had been one of the terrible camps liberated by the 7th Army, which was not Patton's army. And so they got the first cases there, and we also got then the concentration camps. Now, it will interest you to know that when we ran into the concentration camps, we had no idea what we were going to see. We didn't know the term concentration camp. It was unknown. And the reports that came in would read that such and such tank division has entered this and this town, and they encountered large numbers of people looked like they were dying. They were wearing things that looked like ragged pajamas, and they were all huddled together, and they seemed to be coming from some kind of a work camp. That was about the extent of the original report coming into Patton's headquarters, whereupon I got into a jeep, and I got as fast as I could to get to the scene of that camp. First group was some Außenlager of Buchenwald. And the reason we had to get there very quickly was that it was total chaos. And when the troops came in, the Germans ran out, the inmates were dying all over the place. You couldn't tell if they were dead or alive. The bodies lying there naked on the ground in front of the crematoria. There were piles and piles of bodies like cordwood lined up. And everybody running in different directions. My job was, I learned, was to get quickly to the Schreibstube where the records were kept. Then I would get the colonel or whoever was in charge of the tank division and say, look, I'm here from General Patton's headquarters, special assignment, war crimes investigation. They never heard of it. I want 10 men to surround the Schreibstube. Nobody goes in or out without my permission. Seize the Schreibstube. Go in there. Usually there was a Schreiber, an inmate. And my German then was very imperfect. I had never studied German. But I'd explain to them, I want all these records and what went on here. And I would capture the Totenbücher and the entries, you know, how many people came in, how many died. And they would have lists of der Flucht erschossen, auf der Flucht erschossen, auf der Flucht erschossen, page after page after page, or the other one, typhus, 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 page after page, totally artificial descriptions. An excuse put in for the reason for death. And I captured these big black Totenbücher and held them as evidence. We'd capture some of the guards who were there, sometimes the commandant, put them under arrest, bring them off to a prison in Dachau, and hold them for trial. When we got to those trials, the trials went the following way. I mention this because they are not generally known, even in the United States, even in the US Army today. Herr Schmidt, you're accused of being a guard in the concentration camp at Dachau, where innumerable crimes against violation of military law, of beating, torture of prisoners, and killings and starvation and so on were committed. What do you have to say for yourself? I didn't do it. What do you mean you didn't do it? You were a guard in that camp. Didn't you see that happen? No, I didn't see anything happening. I was a cook. I was in the back. You have anything else to say? No. Sit down. Herr Brown, stand up. Oh, yeah, I was ordered to do it. I was only carrying out my orders. And they would have died anyway. So what do you want from me? Go down the list. You have 20 or 30, like the first 3 or 4 rows here, people sitting on benches, one a little higher than the other, each one with a number in front of him, number 27. Number 27, what have you got to say for yourself? When that was over, whole thing, if you had, let's say, 30 prisoners, it may take half an hour at most. The two presiding, or there was usually a major or a captain in charge and 2 lieutenants, one defense counsel, one prosecution counsel. Any more to say? Nothing more? Okay, the court will now adjourn. Court will adjourn next door. Come back in 15 minutes. All the defendants are guilty and will be shot. Oops. Judge Cahal is sitting here with his eyes open. Things have changed a bit. And to verify it, when I last visited the Landsberg, which was known as military prison number 1, war crimes prison number 1, I confirmed that about 1,000 people were shot that way as a result of trials which lasted maybe 2 minutes per capita. So when I left, I was very eager to get out of Germany. I was a Harvard lawyer. That was not my notion of law. And I really never wanted to go back to Germany again. However, I was recruited by the Army to go back. And they said, we need you. The Nuremberg trials had started, and they had already agreed to have subsequent trials. Now, why another 12 trials? Because the International Military Tribunal trial against Goering and so on gave a snapshot picture of what had happened. But it was only a snapshot. And we were trying to get a broader picture of German society in order to find out and to demonstrate how it could be possible that a country like Germany, civilized, educated, could countenance, commit, and encourage the type of atrocities which we knew by that time were happening. And we felt it was a duty, an obligation to do that. Now, it was very clear to all of us that we were not going to do perfect justice. We were not going to try every criminal and give him a long trial and then give him a sentence. Because we had captured in Dahlem, right here, the files which became known later as the Berlin Document Center, BDC. This was the Nazi Party archives of everybody who applied for membership in the party, all the promotions, his Lebenslauf, all the recommendations and references that he had. And this was in the woods, in Dahlem, hidden away, hard to find even today, in underground rooms, the size of this room, with files and miles of card indexes of little black boxes. And so when Herr Schmidt said he wasn't there, I wanted to know, what have we got on him? And sure enough, there you have the application to the party, you have the promotion when he went up the ground, some of the correspondence, recommendations from other high officers, etc. Everything there. Well,